I actually used to work for Anyscale back in the early days when it was just like one room and a dream, I guess you might say. But lately I've been working at IBM Research, and in particular working on the AI Alliance, which I'll be happy to tell you about. And I just want to let you know how pivotal Ray has been to a couple of open source projects that we're featuring at our booth. It's right over there against the wall if you want to come check us out. So let me talk first about the AI Alliance, what it's all about. I've had a lot of questions about it today. It's an international organization of universities, startups, large enterprises like Meta and IBM, other research institutions. You can see it's all around the world, really trying to bring a diversity of opinion and concerns, and also capabilities to this problem of how do we make sure AI is open and as accessible as possible. Essentially leveraging the history and success of open source software as best we can in this new regime that we're living in. But we also want to make sure that's done safely. So for example, some of the things that we do is really in 6 focus areas. The first one is about spreading knowledge, educating developers, stakeholders, people who do policy, as well as end consumers of AI, so they can understand its abilities as well as its risks. And we also have a policy and advocacy focus area to really respond to things like SB 1047 for those of you here in California, to express an opinion about what we think would be effective regulation but not overdoing it and so forth. And then I mostly focus on the 4 technical areas in the middle here. In particular, I co-lead trust and safety, which is, actually my co-lead is Joe Spizak from Meta, who's going to be here tomorrow doing a keynote. But the reason I got involved in this one was because if we can't trust this stuff to actually do what we want, especially if we're a fairly conservative enterprise and really worried about our customers, then we're never going to deploy this stuff. And so far, there's certainly been a lot of anecdotal evidence that people are doing proof of concepts, but they're not yet ready to go into production. So whatever we can do to make us confident and ready to believe that this stuff's going to work to our advantage, that's what we need to do. So that's an area I really like to work on, and I'd love to have you help. We also have a group that focuses on tools for model building and applications, things like educating people about the state-of-the-art in agents, RAG pattern, graph RAG, that kind of stuff, and thinking about what we need to do together to fill gaps in the tool space. The fourth one is really about hardware portability. As you may have heard in the keynote this morning, there's been quite a proliferation of alternatives to NVIDIA GPUs. So this is about the software stack. How can we make sure that that stack makes it easy and seamless for you as developers to move your loads to the right accelerators that work for you? Balancing cost, availability, performance, all those kind of things. And then the last one is open models and data sets. I'll talk about one of the data set projects in just a few minutes. But this is really about where are the gaps in models. There's obviously a lot of open models like the Llama models from Meta, the IBM Granite models, and so forth. But there's a lot of work we can do in time series, in medical, or very like healthcare and molecular discovery, those kind of models. So it's really about promoting those things, and then it's addressing some issues with data sets that I'll get into in just a second. Okay, so that's what the Alliance is about. Do come and talk to us about it. We'd love to sit down with you and see where it might make sense for you to get involved, either as an individual or perhaps as an organization. So I'm going to talk about 2 projects that we open sourced recently at IBM. The first one is called Data Prep Kit. So I mentioned IBM has its own large language models called Granite, and in order to train models from scratch, you need to manage a lot of data. You clean it, deduplicate it, all kinds of stuff like that. So out of that exercise of doing the same sort of data munging and collection that everybody does who's doing foundation models, we developed this array-based system called Data Prep Kit that really is designed for that maximal scalability requirement when you're processing terabytes of data, but it leverages the beauty of Ray, so it also scales down to smaller problems. So if you think about the requirements for something like this, well, massive parallelism is obviously important, especially when you are doing those terabyte-sized pre-training data sets. But boy, when you're doing development, it's really nice if you can work on your own laptop. And a lot of the data problems you might be doing don't necessarily need a cluster, and wouldn't it be great if I can just run them with the same pipelines on my laptop? And the other thing you need is flexible processing nodes. So whatever it is you need to do to the data, whether it's deduplication, filtering for hate speech, maybe aligning it with your cultural norms, you want to be able to easily write these processing nodes, plug them into your pipelines, and just have it work. So those are the kind of requirements that we wanted to satisfy with this tool. And the way we did it, in large part, was using Ray as our secret sauce. Again, it let us do that scaling from the laptop up to massive clusters. It gave us the ability to focus our engineering time for a small team on building these pipelines and processing nodes and not have to reinvent the wheel for infrastructure. But it turns out there's a nice separation between the pipelines and the actual runtime. So in fact, you can actually run these things just with basic Python, like on your laptop. You can also run them on Spark. And you can use Kubernetes or not use it as you see fit. Now, as a matter of fact, we have a team that started running Data Prep Kit on the Anyscale platform as one way to have a lean and mean deployment that they can scale easily as they need it, because they just didn't need the capabilities of a Kubernetes cluster. Kubernetes is fantastic when you have a big infrastructure, heterogeneous workloads, and you need something to kind of orchestrate all of that, track it, monitor it, and everything. But if you're bursting Ray clusters to the cloud, you don't necessarily need all of that. You just need a fast, capable service to do it for you. And Anyscale has proven to be that for us. So that's Data Prep Kit. Now, I mentioned a minute ago, back to the Alliance, that we are trying to think about what are the problems with data sets that the world needs to solve. And as most of you may know, there are very few so-called open source, truly open source data sets where all the data's out there, all the code and everything. Often it's open access to the weights of the model and maybe model cards that explain, here's basically what we did to the data, here's sort of a list of the data sources. But people are actually reluctant to be very specific about their data sources. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this, but one of them that we've all heard stories about is provenance. Did you actually use data that you were allowed to use? Where did that data come from? Did you have the right to actually use it in training? So if you don't admit that you're using something that's maybe got sketchy provenance, then you're hopefully protecting yourself from legal risk. So we're starting this project called the Open Trusted Data Initiative in the Alliance. And this is one of the core goals of it. There are plenty of data sets out there. You can go to Hugging Face and find enormous numbers of them. There are other sources of data. What we're trying to do is think about where are the unsolved problems that are slowing people down from having the data they need. And so really it's kind of a couple of foci, if you will. One is, can we collect and catalog data sets with really clear provenance, governance, very open filtering processes that were used to get rid of hate speech or whatever. And secondly, what are the underserved areas? It turns out time series is a fantastic tool for things like monitoring systems, predicting failures, anomaly detection. But there really is a great paucity of data sets for actually developing and proving out time series models, because unfortunately most of the data is proprietary. I'm not going to give you my server logs so that you can train your model, because that's kind of like secret information about my environment. So this maybe the second big thrust of this particular initiative is to address this problem. Can we fill the gaps in terms of data sets? All right, the last project I'll talk about, and these barcodes or QR codes are all different, just to be clear, and I'll show them all at the end. OpenAD, or for accelerated discovery. This is actually why I joined IBM 2.5 years ago, and I've had a meandering tour through the company. But this is really about enabling projects like molecular discovery, where we have just a lot of really interesting models. You may have seen the banner walking in of a new protein folding model system. There's just a lot of really good models out there for science, but they can be hard to use. And the scientists that are doing this research don't want to learn Kubernetes or even Ray or anything like that. So the idea of this project is to give them a very lightweight, flexible way of integrating a lot of tools so that they can get their jobs done. And of course, it's built on Ray. Interestingly enough, we also use SkyPilot, which is another more recent Berkeley project, so that it's relatively easy for people to scale from like single researcher, single student, all the way up to enterprise teams, using tools like SkyPilot to direct computation to available resources wherever they may be, but even going up to do things like support Kubernetes when you're like in a massive OpenShift environment or something at a pharmaceutical, let's say. So it's designed to make it easy to pull in whatever models you want, whatever tools, integrate them easily, make scalability and deployment fast, efficient, trivial. So that's pretty much it. Here's the 3 QR codes and the URLs. Do come and talk to us at the booth over here, the IBM booth around the corner, about the AI Alliance or about either of these projects, and we'd love to talk to you about it. So thank you very much.